Hello, everybody, and welcome to our 7th Art of Nursing webinar. It's 12:59, so I'll just give a minute or so for other people to arrive. We have 122 people registered for this webinar, which is amazing. And what we're going to hear are the stories, real and fictional, prose and poetry from nurses who are using their skills to be creative and also caring and bridge that gap between what it is to be a nurse and what it is to be an artist. I'm particularly thrilled with today because as a general nurse and as a mental health nurse, the stories that I've read and the authors I've invited have really resonated with me. And then the work with balancing the development of artificial intelligence in nursing with our other ways of being are really brought to the fore by Claire in a poem from her work in AI in nursing in Korea. So we are international today, and we have also advertised through the United Nations Festival for the Future Arts in Health Programme, which is part of my work. So we may well have people from all over the world, artists who are engaged in ensuring that the health people and the planet is part of their work too. So we will have fireside chat, just as we always do. No slides allowed. This is a webinar where you can go for a walk, catch up with elements, look at the screen and look at people's faces and connect with people and what they're saying, rather than look at slides and try and make notes. The recording will be on the Royal College of Nursing YouTube site within a week, so you can share it widely, and will also be on the artofnursing.co.uk website and also the Foundation of Nursing Studies website. These webinars are brought through me because it's my passion that we start to value the human in the non-human health service. In my role as trustee with the Foundation of Nursing Studies and in partnership with Sarah and the RCN Libraries and Museum, who a year ago joined us when we sat in a room for the first time and then realised that this was something that could last for a year. So we're running them up till April, every other month, and you'll hear more about that and what's coming out at the end. So this is 1302. Let me explain the process. We've got 3 stories to be told, maybe 4, and each person will have between 8 and 10 minutes to tell you their story. After this, we might take a 1 or 2 questions and then move on to the next story, because it's a kind of fireside chat. But what we'll do is gather most of your questions or comments for the end, and we'll spend the last 10 minutes or so in a Q&A session, so you can ask the presenters more and you can comment on what it is you've gained from it or what you want to do as we go forward. So the design, as I said, is a fireside chat. It's making us connect as humans, not as non-humans. Although it's virtual, we're trying to make it as relational and connected as possible. And this is all part of the Creative Health in Nursing, the submission to the National Centre for Creative Health, the submission from the National Centre for Creative Health to the NHS Nursing and Midwifery Strategy has been co-written by myself. It's 12 pages long because we want to get this kind of approach of creative health into everybody's approach to how we think about and practice, research and teach nursing. So this is part of a bigger programme as well. So with that in mind, can I just ask Sarah, in the chat, are there any health and safety issues that anyone's put? I've just got 6 noted up there.
No, that was just me sharing the subtitles information and other useful info for those who have any issues.
We all register for these webinars through the RCN and Everbright. It is actually open to the public, so I just need to check who's listening, because I can't see all the faces. So with that in mind, I'm going to go over to Gaye Poole to start. Gaye is here because we've worked together for many years on Arts and Health programme, and the piece of beautiful work that she's talking about today really resonated with me as a mental health nurse. So I became a mental health nurse and trained in the 80s, and I had been a general nurse. And what I couldn't understand is where within mental health nursing, I stopped and someone else started, and it was so different to being a general nurse. And Gaye's work here hit home. So I wanted people who are on this webinar to hear about it as well. So Gaye, I'm not going to say who you are other than that, but over to you for the first session in our Art of Nursing Novel Nurses.
Thank you very much, Marion. I feel really, hello everybody, first of all, wonderful nurses. I feel really grateful to be part of, I'm going to call it a passion platform then, as Marion has just used that word. The marvel is Marion is very good at linking arms across health and arts. I feel, to me, they're squeezed very, very tightly. Marion said not to overthink this when she said, can you talk about how your nursing is fed into your creativity and vice versa? But of course I did. And as like life, it's just too huge to explain, isn't it? It's just so instinctive. So to tether myself, I looked up nursing in the dictionary. I looked up creativity in the dictionary, and nursing obviously was, I liked this, to administer, to listen, to be alongside. And creativity, the use of an original idea to create something. For me, my creativity has not come from original ideas at all, actually, but from the patients that I have met and their stories, real and imagined, which I've internalized over the years. On my own email footer, I have actor, writer, celebrant. I haven't got nurse in there. I trained in that, very few of you will remember, the very hot, historically hot summer of 1976. And I felt like a character in one of my own, almost Jane Austen novels, actually, because we had the Royal London Hospital, and I had mutton chopped big puff sleeves with that little sniff of perfume we were told to have on each puff. But by the end of the day, I was like a crumbling, melting, wilting wreck. So the heroin didn't last very long. And I didn't last very long in nursing, actually, general nursing. I ended up being a staff nurse on the cardiac unit there. And then I left to become a psychiatric nurse at the Maudsley, and was a staff nurse on the children's unit for 6 months. And although I left in the 1980s, I still feel that I have a nurse in me, that writing, celebrancy and acting still are the jobs that I do. But I feel that I am strangely a nurse. I can't give that being up in me. I think I just recognised early enough, thankfully, and I say this in my bios actually, thankfully I left nursing to spare lives, which sounds very dramatic, but I believe it to be true. I don't know whether any of you do dot to dot, some people still do, the 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and by 67 suddenly you've got an elephant on the page. Well, I didn't immediately connect the dots in nursing, that was my problem. Okay, sort of temperature, swelling, sort of agitated speech, the dots just weren't connecting for me. I connected other dots completely. And I think, you know, you wonderful nurses out there, you are obviously very good at automatically connecting those dots that give diagnosis or whatever, but also having the creative freedom, I think, to connect those other dots, that, you know, the fear, whatever, and understand how they all connect so you can have a holistic approach. So I can only now talk about my very dusty lens on all of this. And obviously the most important memories to me of certain patients. I think many people will remember their first patient. For me, it was Edith. I was an 18-year-old, Wilson ward, handover, nurse Poole, go and give a blanket bath to bed 28. Edith, it didn't have a name then, we'll call her Edith Holloway, and that's one of the beauties, I think, of novel writing. We get to make up lovely names. She was Edith, though. So I arrived at her bedside, and I found a very large lady who obviously couldn't communicate, and she was in a sodden hospital nightie, and I just didn't know where to begin. Thankfully, halfway through my blanket bath, her daughter turned up, and this lady's eyes lit up and a tear stole down her cheek. And the three of us had a conversation together. And I think for me, that's when my my emotional maturity fast-tracked in that moment. And I think nursing for me, I realised, provided for me from that moment the art of seeing a unique individual. And particularly that person's context in life, the people. I always love visiting time, the people around the bed, that sort of thing. And I think just knowing that your antennae are attuned for all those things and all those conversations going on. And for me, you know, they're the sort of stories that have stayed with me. When I went to drama school, I was told to eavesdrop on, which I thought was a very risky thing to do, stare at people on the tube. But I understood what they were getting at, but I was already doing that. You know, nurses are curious, we want to know all about people. And so it had lots of characters and emotions for our SAC, our writing SAC or acting SAC or whatever. And also, I particularly liked nursing end of life care, when we were very much the conduit for the patient to wherever, and the relative, the understanding, the interpreting of what they were saying when they were catching an aeroplane or whatever. And I think sort of like taking those human behaviours, for me, that's what I've treasured, and particularly being with people at those vulnerable times. That is what has fed my writing very definitely. And also remembering that not every patient wanted the care, very importantly, and who were we to presume? So that was always a really big lesson for me. And again, another patient that sticks in mind was a homeless chap who came in when I was in the East End in London Hospital, and he went through, the knit bath and all that sort of thing that we used to do then. And he said, I feel like livestock. I feel as if I'm going through a sheep dip. And I started to do, and I hope you nurses have your imagination, your escape hatch that you can go to. I used to go to poetry classes, and the first poem I ever wrote, and I've just dug it out this morning actually, and I'm only going to read an extract because I know we've got poets on here, which is but this is about, from him. He was an accountant formerly. So one of the lines was the FT to insulate the rise and fall of his health. You'd think he'd be grateful for a hospital bed, to exit in stiff, clean white sheets. But the man whose surface from soap and scissor assault in pale blue hospital nightgown had matching watering eyes. Who was he, disturbing us with his lack of identity? But no less a man without a barber, a job, a home, because perhaps he was more. And for me, we had so many different characters in the East End at that time, and so many of them have entered my writing. But back to the docs, I think the detail for me in nursing that you have to notice has stayed with me as a writer, because I think that's what makes people more interesting, isn't it? In my celebrity work, grandma the other day, 86, a grandma 86, but this grandma 86, she'd fostered 47 babies and had kept a lock of hair of every single baby secretly, and were only discovered after she died. So it's those surprises, I think, that I take into my writing and look for very definitely. And I think also realizing that you get all those different points of view, from people when they die, from relatives round a bed. And I think for me in writing, that's what I've taken as well. a play about alcoholism, it was particularly important to me to have the daughter sort of in the play, so that she could talk about her, the impact of alcohol from her father. And I think one of the things I learned as well as a nurse was to get over myself, because I think nurses very much get over themselves, don't they? They learn to very quickly. The embarrassment, whatever, so that they can communicate with people with autism, with dementia, with delusion, whatever. And I think that really sort of has freed me in my communications as well. And I think developing that sixth sense as well. And I think I love comedy impro still, and it's almost like being in A&E, what's going to happen next. And writing sometimes is like that unfolding, and as you watch a life and unravel, for me, that's how my writing works. That character arrives and I see what they're going to do and say next. Nursing obviously taught me hard work and discipline, which you need plenty of to sort of get yourself out there and writing, but also to give dignity and respect, I think, to many of the characters, particularly because I do plunder other people's lives. Marion is now a trustee of a theatre company I co-founded called Human Story Theatre, because all my work is about human stories. Recently did a play about domestic abuse, and one of the most shocking stories this woman shared with me, her husband had built a shed at the end of his garden, insulated, soundproofed, so that he would take her in there daily to abuse her. And she wanted me to include this in the play, and indeed part of it was, but I needed her to be in the rehearsal room to witness and feel this, to see whether it was okay as a message to get out there, because I want those audiences to retell. I want my readership to retell, because that's what, for me, I'm about, is the spreading of those messages. At the moment, I'm working with Marion, and I've seen a couple of names already pop up, Marion, which is lovely. And this is that we've interviewed for a play which is still in the process of being written, with input from patients as well, about mental health nursing, mental health per se, called Shift. And I just want to read you a quote very quickly. I've lost my timer. I'm sorry, Marion. I'm gabbling, trying to be quick, from a recent interview, and it may even be from somebody on here. I think if you play into nursing is only a science, then what you're saying is the artistic, the human side of it isn't important. And that's not true. It's the balance that's important, and being able to think of yourself as a toolkit that you put at the service of somebody else's clinical recovery, and just as importantly, their personal recovery. And for me, that's precisely what it is for me now. All those things are my toolkit now, not that one size fits all in any way, but that creativity of self that can be sort of exploratively, but can be collaboratively with a patient or with a character, and life unfolds, whatever the story is. And to lead me to my book, nursing, I think very importantly, taught me to understand people's baggage. And this is my book. It's called The Edges of Me. And it is about a real encounter that I had when I was a very, very new student nurse in the Maudsley Hospital. This girl, Claire, came in. She was a student physio from the hospital over the road, and turned up one Saturday night. She was slightly plainer, slightly dimmer. She felt slightly more overweight than her, glorious girlfriends. They were all out on Saturday, tipsily drunk in a nightclub in London. She'd stayed behind, and she'd phoned home, and her mother was a foster mother, and had a new foster child, and was very bound up with her, and didn't have time to speak to Claire at that moment. Claire ended up coming over the road with a slight graze on her arm, and was admitted and treated for depression, and then had a series of ECT. And I, all along, even as a very, very new mental health nurse, thought, oh, she just wants to be loved, or she's just sad, and I just, until belatedly, I wondered afterwards whether she might have a borderline personality disorder. And we used to go out together on buses to get her used to being out back in the world again. And we could have been friends. And so this is the imagined relationship out in the world of a very interdependent female friendship that is unfortunately sort of plagued by the impact and the effect of borderline personality disorder, that it wasn't diagnosed.
I'm going to stop you there, I'm going to stop you there.
I've had one more line.
Oh, go, sorry. Say your one more line.
No, and so I have got it written down. To assuage my guilt from leaving nurses, I feel my mission is to get people talking about health issues, to heal, which neatly brings to where it all began.
Thank you. We're going to move on to Paul because it's 13:20. You can get Gaye's book in all kinds of places, and the plays that we developed you'll see more of at the end, maybe, or just look on our website. But you can see why being a nurse gets into your DNA and right through your veins, whether you're doing it or not doing it. So I want to go swiftly. Moving on from borderline personality disorder and nursing in the 80s brings us to the present with Paul, but who also has an account of the present, but also how it interlinks with the past. But is when I read his book, I was a bit like, oh my goodness, because again, I remember working in a forensic unit. I remember working at Brookwood, this old hospital, and looking after people who had been put there in the Second World War. That's how old I am. And these stories of what goes on, and then this sort of insidious bits just came out with Paul's book. But Paul is more than this book as well. So Paul, over to you.
Thanks, Marion. Hello, everyone. I can't see you, but I hope you're enjoying this session with writers. My writing goes back before I was a nurse, so a very long time ago. I trained in the 1980s. I qualified in 1989. But before that, I had a wonderful literary agent who read some of my early stuff and was excited by it. He told me, he said, look, he said, don't think for a moment that writing will be your whole career. So, you know, writing is actually something which comes out of interest in people, experience, and so on. So make sure you go and do a career which is particularly interesting, stimulating, and so on. And this should give you the energy for your work. Well, I chose mental health nursing, and boy, I'm really happy I did. I've had a great career. I'm now a professor at the Institute of Mental Health in Nottingham, and I've written 2 novels. I'll talk about my latest novel in a moment. But I just want to say, you know, being a nurse is being creative. So for me, that opportunity that privilege really, to work with people with very diverse lives, very different kinds of challenges mentally, has been everything to my world as a writer. And I think to one of the great literary critics actually of recent years, David Lodge. And David Lodge worked at Birmingham University, where I eventually did a PhD in literature on the work of William Golding, Lord of the Flies Man. And David always pointed out that literature is the greatest source or repository of human consciousness. So often when I talk to fellow practitioners, there is some sort of sense that writing doesn't really relate to the real world, that it is perhaps just an entertainment, it's not something that nurses should be concerned about. I beg to differ on that, and I think being involved in reading literature as well as writing literature is key to developing a compassionate self. So my latest novel, The Wonders of Dr. Bent, I have a copy here. You can see that beautiful cover. should resonate with any reader really, but also our nurses who care about people living with conditions such as paranoid schizophrenia, for example, and who end up locked away, sometimes for the rest of their lives. In the novel, the worlds of Jason Hemp, an English lecturer, and Dr. Bent, who's an unlikely goth medical director of a high-security psychiatric hospital called Foston Hall, come together in a tale of murder, revenge, and abandonment. It's a dark kind of novel. It's a literary novel that borrows from the thriller genre, but there is more in there from the point of view of nursing care, compassionate care. So, attempting to track down his twin brother's killer, Jason finds his life basically unraveling in very frightening ways. And the visionary Dr. Bent attempts to reform Foston Hall into a more humane, compassionate place, controversial idea, all while facing his own mental health challenges. So he's a kind of wounded healer, if you wish. Behind that forbidding security fence of Foston Hall, out of public sight, Dr. Bent views patients indefinitely detained as people, not monsters. And we've had recently a case with Valdo Calacane, for example, and the killings in Nottingham. And unfortunately, of course, and tragically, 2 of our students. We saw the media response immediately, despite his paranoid schizophrenia and the fact he was basically left on the street to fend for himself. And, care wasn't quite there for him. Because he did terrible things, he's now talked about as simply a monster. Dr. Bent is compassionate to those who pose a grave and immediate danger to others and themselves. He believes that patients in high secure hospitals deserve a caring and comfortable environment, a place for recovery and growth, not a prison. And he strives to balance the prison-like culture at Foston Hall by making conditions less punitive. The staff call these reforms his wonders, yet not everyone agrees with his efforts, especially right-wing politicians and the media. The question is, of course, behind the novel, can he succeed? Now, alongside Dr. Bent, we find nurses on hospital wards and in a care home. There's a substantive representation of nursing staff in this novel, and that's fairly unusual. We also get occupational therapists and psychologists, etc. But it's quite unusual for fiction to give fulsome representation of nursing professionals in fiction. So where that happens, I hope our nurses across the land actually take notice and read those works. Importantly, in the novel, The Wonders of Dr. Bent, we enter into a world of suffering, but also one of survival, or as I like to call it sometimes, surthrival. In other words, not just surviving, but thriving. And this is something that applies to both our professionals and our patients. We all have to survive together. You'll find in the book a kind of, I guess, an emphasis on mutual recovery. How do we mutually recover together? For me, I guess the novel revisits the need for everyone to check out their compassion levels. And I think we really do need to consider how we view people judged to be acting with diminished responsibility when committing terrible acts. So The Wonders of Dr. Bent, really, it's fairly controversial. I wrote it before the events of Valdo Calacane, and I was really nervous as a professional, as a nurse, bringing such a book out after such an event. But, I think it's really important to stop monsterizing people who periodically or for times, their brains are not quite their own. I was really upset by, obviously, the tragedy of what happened in Nottingham, and I was also upset by the media response. And I really felt for the family of Valdo, who were trying to get the right kind of care for him, the right supports, and he fell through the holes in the net, literally. And now, you know, we very much doubt he will ever see freedom again. So this book is kind of a novel which dwells on the ethics of how we view other people who do awful things, but also who are essentially victims themselves of their own acts. So I hope you enjoy reading this book, and thank you for listening today. And I hope every nurse listening today sees reading fiction and even writing fiction relevant to care, or not even about care, as important in terms of extending our knowledge, a different kind of knowledge about how other people's minds might work, and imagining their lives through the characters, and then through that deepening their empathic response. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. And that call to action in terms of showing our wisdom and the worth of the human connection for nursing by using the arts really is a call out to all nurses who think reflective writing might be something you have to do for revalidation, but actually it's for the validation of ourselves as well, and to spread the word so that we can change the inequity and the injustice that's going on. So I'm going to move us now to Claire, who's speaking from Korea. And this takes us from the imaginings from the 1980s, where mental health nursing and the humanity or inhumanity happened, to a future gaze on artificial intelligence. And I've invited Claire because of her poem called Twilight Zone, which when I read it in the nursing literature, just stopped me dead in my feet as I'm starting to develop strategies for how we put the human in non-human health systems. It just made everything right. And when I read what Claire is also doing, she's a nurse and in other spheres as well, I knew we needed to hear from her and from her world in Korea. So Claire's going to read out her session. English is her second language. Her English is brilliant. So Claire, over to you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. My name is Su-Yeon Park. I am from South Korea. I have practiced this presentation a lot, but I hope you will kindly forgive me if my pronunciation is not perfect. I work at the intersection of nursing, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing. My research develops models for what I call optimal safe nursing staffing levels. Essentially, it is the sweet spot where patient outcomes are maximized related to costs, a golden zone where efficiency and effectiveness meet, satisfying patients, nurses, and stakeholders alike. But for me, technology has never been about replacing the human touch. It is about aligning innovation with dignity. Still, behind this research lies another story. For many years, I carried a deep sense of isolation. I didn't fully belong to nursing. I didn't fully belong to engineering. The path I chose often felt like a labyrinth, dark, uncertain, and lonely. There were countless rejections, collapses of confidence, and even times when my tears simply would not stop. And yet I kept walking, not because I was certain, but because something inside me refused to give up. And in that journey, poetry became my companion, my healer, and my guide. Why poems? Because data and algorithms cannot speak for the soul. The more I worked with numbers, the more I heard the silence of what cannot be measured: compassion, dignity, and love. Losing is not only about numbers or efficiency. It is about suffering, vulnerability, and the search for meaning. AI brings us precision and efficiency, but poetry preserves our humanity. And both are essential if nursing is to face the future without losing its soul. This reminds me of a study published in Lancet in 2001. It describes the patients in the Netherlands who had near-death experiences. Many reported traveling through a tunnel, encountering a source of light, and hearing profound questions. What have you learned in this life? How much have you helped, cared for, and loved others? Have you fulfilled your mission? If I were asked today, I would answer, I do not wish to be remembered simply as a professor at a famous university. I wish to be remembered as a scholar who truly improved the quality of life of nurses and patients. Now I would like to share 2 poems that reflect this journey. The first poem is In the Twilight Zone Between AI and Nursing. Between maze-like corridors of algorithms and the warm sanctuary of healing rooms, I walk a path where few dare tread, a nurse who dares to cross boundaries, seeking wisdom in unexpected corners. In one hand, I hold the pure essence of care, the silent faith in the healing pain, while in the other, algorithms lure, with parents cold as autumn rain. Too technical, my nursing peers declare. Too philosophical, AI researchers sigh. Yet, in this twilight space, I dare to hear integration's quiet cry. For in this space where worlds collide, where ones and zeros meet the soul, I have learned that healing must reside in making broken systems whole. My research speaks in many tongues, where data aligns with the pulse of care, and nursing theory lends its guiding light. The algorithms stark and bare, like healing rain on the parched terrain. Each rejection, a door slammed shut in my face, echoes of doubt in empty hallways, where my ideas, still fragile, crumble beneath the weight of the unknown. Each raised eyebrow, a challenge to my spirit. Yet I stood taller, eyes set out what could be. In the silence of disbelief, I found my voice, like a quiet storm breaking through the doubt. From the ashes of rejection, I rose, forged in the fire of criticism. Now, my steps are steady, though the path remains unclear. For each challenge has shaped me, and in uncertainty, I have learned to stand. In this twilight land of not quite belonging, where disciplines flow and blend, a new paradigm of healing's dawning, though few many understand as much. I stand firm in this crossroads where doubt meets possibility, knowing that tomorrow's breakthrough grow from today's ambiguity and solitude. Let them question, let them wonder. I will keep weaving these words together. For in this sacred space of learning, understanding blooms gently, like a nurse's touch, restoring life to weary souls. Through data point and through human stories, through algorithms and through tears, I'm charting path for the future healers who will dare to bridge these frontiers. The second poem is The Threshold of Dignity. In the twilight of algorithms and breath, where quantum circuit hum and silicon webs, I chart the landscape between life and death, where humanity trembles and technology creeps. Our elders, mapped by data, coded, confined, reduced to metrics in a system so clean. Who speaks for the soul when machines are designed to fill the void where compassion has been? Low birth rate whisper of civilization waned. Nurses vanish like mist before dawn. I walk this path, uncharted, unstained, where ethics and progress are brutally drawn. Not for accolade, not for a name, but for dignity's last, most tender flame. My research, a torch in this algorithm night, a bridge between what is measured and felt, hoping that when my own journey takes flight, the seeds of true caring will somehow have a date. A hand to those who will tremble and wait when machines calculate their ultimate fate. Let my life be more than data's cold pulse, more than a footnote in clinical verse, a testament that beyond every sparse computation, human worth will traverse. These poems are not meant to give answers. They are invitations to pause, reflect, and imagine a future where technology and humanity work together. And perhaps when our time comes to meet that source of light, and we are asked those ultimate questions, we may answer with honesty that we have cared, that we have loved, that we have prepared our mission. Thank you very much.
Gosh, thank you, Claire. Got this tear coming down my face, as Gaye said, stealing down my face when you speak of that, ensuring that we are holding that human element alongside those algorithms. We will make the poetry words available on the Art of Nursing website in the next couple of days, so people can read again and reflect on this and hold those close to our hearts. We're going to end with another poem, okay? But it's actually so why this resonated me with Bella is because having dealt with death as a nurse through my life, it just nailed it. So it brings our nursing bit to the end, and then we'll close. Bella, tell us.
Thank you. The poem is called Sorted. Quick context, it's about palliative care in the home, in the community, and it's written from the caregiver's perspective, the family caregiver. Sorted. It's you and me, love, so please keep me in the loop, promise? You see, I've got it sorted now. Have the number just in case, and that nurse is great, huh? I'm sure she'll keep us safe and point us the right way, and she's only a phone call away. Wait, I'll get that, love. Sit back down. There, good. Comfy? Where was I? Oh yes, that nurse. She knows exactly what to say, doesn't she? And so little delay, unlike the GP and the hospital and, God forbid, A&E. That was a long haul, huh? Telling the story over and over and having to fight. No, sit tight. I'll pass it. How's the pain, love? Okay, but don't go all stoic on me, okay? Promise? Right, so let's keep her on side. It was sort of scary that last time, chasing your meds all over the place. Thank goodness that chemist was open. And I'd left you alone for 2 hours by then. I know you were okay, but I worry when I have to disappear. Don't leave here. Anyway, those meds are safely tucked in the cupboard now. We're sorted, all under control. Oh yes, I'll just check the date on them. Thanks for the reminder. Oh, okay, not to worry. I'll go fetch the wipes and a fresh bag. I left them upstairs last night, sorry. There. That's it, I think. Easy. Let me just, right, now ease back slowly. Damn, sorry, I forgot to tape that bit up. Here we go. There. You okay? Sure? Good? Done. I'll make a cuppa. Want the telly back on? Hey, love, we got this bit sorted out. Ha! Last week, was it? Gosh, was it only last week? Crikey, last week we had no idea. Now, well, just look at us. Quite a team. Yes, no problem. I'll turn it off. You have a sleep. Wait, I'll get those cushions sorted. I've got bits to do too. Need to get some more dressings and pads. I'll be in the back room, okay? Don't go anywhere. Love? Hello, sweetheart. No, nothing wrong, but, well, you were moaning. Should I call the nurse? Yes, I think so too. It does seem to have got worse. Done. Hopefully not too long. Here, hold my hand. Hang on. Oh, hi there. Hello. Oh, Jeannie, I'm so glad it's you. Come in. Tea? Yes, no, we've done that, but it's just not working as it did last week. And I'm so sorry to bother you, but I was worried and actually, Jeannie, scared. Thank you. Thank you. Gosh, that's made me feel better. I thought I'd done it wrong. I'm okay. Just tears. Relief, really. It's okay. Love? You awake? Sorry, love. I didn't hear? Yes, I've got them. It's okay. Jean is here.
Well, Jeannie's here, and the poem of Sorted kind of sums up the experiences that we bring as nurses to people and to situations that perhaps no one sees or understands until they've needed it. And that it's okay, love. Jeannie's here brings it right back to me, that emotional connection. So I'm going to close us on here. Please, message from Sarah. Join us at our next webinar in November on gender. There are a whole list of other ones going on. Tomorrow is a webinar, not with the RCN, but that's about the art of nursing and saving the planet. That's one I'm doing with sustainable healthcare and using the art from the United Nations and my work with climate activism. And on Monday, you could join us for Tiny Rainbow. That's advertised on Everbright as well. So can I just thank, with my heart and my head, Gaye, Paul and Claire and Bella, who have shared their experience and expertise and creativeness in an online situation. But I feel like we've been there in the room emotionally as well, because that's what being a nurse is as well. We kind of sense that human element as well. So it's 13:59. For those of you who have volunteered to and asked to be part of the special interest group and move on, we'll collect your work. And for those of you who want to reread the poems, I'll put them up on the artofnursing.co.uk website, and you can see more about the next webinars that are coming there as well. So thank you to all. And emotionally, nursing ourselves and nursing others and nursing the planet is what we're here to do. Let's just make it visible to all. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Sarah, I'm leaving you with the collecting all of those comments before they disappear.
Yeah, the chat automatically saves.
Thank you, Marion and everyone.
Yeah, thanks very much. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, that was lovely. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. If speakers want to stay on just for a few minutes, if you can, that's okay.
Yeah.
Claire, I know it's raining and it's 10 p.m. in Korea.
That was lovely. Can I just briefly say, because I've got to dash in a minute, how the fact that Gaye, Claire, crikey, I've forgotten your name, Paul. Sorry, Paul. We're talking about mental health nursing, and the fact that you were